is your Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor 2022 review. I am the Solomonster. Ring of Honor has always been known for its wrestling, right? Going back to the infancy of the company, it was always known for having great wrestling matches. It was always known for the in-ring product. You wanted to see great wrestling matches, you watched a Ring of Honor show. That's how it was. That's how I got into Ring of Honor in the first place and started going to the live shows. I was wowed by a lot of what I saw. I was not used to seeing matches like that, and it was always a lot of fun for me. Tonight, Ring of Honor continued that tradition of great wrestling matches. If you were looking for a pay-per-view with great matches from top to bottom, very good matches from top to bottom, really no horrible matches on the main card, certainly, then you got exactly what you paid for, especially in that main event tonight. Of course, I'm going to start talking about that main event because how could I not? How could I not talk about the main event first? The first match between FTR and the Briscoes back in April. One of the greatest matches in Ring of Honor history. And it will be, at the end of this year, on a lot of people's lists as far as the match of the year is concerned, right? A tremendous match between those two teams back in April. When they announced the rematch, I'm sure the two teams had the same reservations that some fans had. How can you possibly top what you did back in April? As great as that first match was back in April, how could you go out there and expect to have a match even better than that? You're tempting fate, right? How could the sequel be better than the original? Well, they went out there tonight and they proved a lot of people wrong. They went out there tonight and not only did they deliver a match that I feel was at the level of their first match, I believe they topped it. I believe that they went out there tonight and they had an even better match than the one that they had in April. Tonight was one of the greatest tag team matches that I've ever seen. Tonight was tag team wrestling at its finest. This is what makes tag team wrestling so great. When you have two teams as good and as experienced as the ones that we saw in that ring tonight, FTR, the Briscoes, you put them together, and sometimes two teams, the chemistry they have in the ring, they just work well together, right? They just gel. You can't predict it. It just sort of happens. 2 out of 3 falls. So we got 3 matches in one, essentially, tonight. 45 minutes of pure tag team wrestling is what we got in that main event tonight. It started slow, and then it built, and you had some dramatic near falls, and you had some spots. There was, one table spot worked in there. I mean, they picked their spots. It was a very, I thought, smartly laid out match in that main event tonight. And the sequel was, in fact, better than the original. And it doesn't always work out that way, but we lucked out. And here we are now, both these teams now with 2 match of the year candidates, and we're only in July. We are barely past the halfway mark of this year. FTR and Dax Harwood in particular, but FTR is in the middle of a career year. Both of those guys, and Dax in particular, they are in the middle of having an all-time run right now, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. It's been a lot of fun to follow along, whether it's in Ring of Honor, whether it's in AEW. Of course, they're also the AAA Tag Team Champions, right? They got all the gold. Right now, FTR is draped in all the gold. They're dripping in gold. But these two teams went out there tonight and they delivered an absolutely fucking fantastic main event. And as great as FTR, and I'll lavish praise on FTR all day long, the Briscoes have been doing this for a very long time, right? Ring of Honor, 20 years in Ring of Honor. And Tony Khan was very smart to lock them into new long-term contracts. We found out this past week that the Briscoes are not going to be leaving Ring of Honor. They're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. They are locked in. And really, how can you have Ring of Honor? How can you relaunch or revamp Ring of Honor and not have the Briscoes? I mean, the Briscoes are the heart and soul of that company. Guys have come and gone. CM Punk, you think of people like him. You think of people like Bryan Danielson and Tyler Black and Nigel McGuinness. I mean, we could go up and down the whole list. Even Claudio, right? Now Claudio's back. The Briscoes always stayed. The Briscoes were always there. We know the whole situation with WWE. They almost went. It didn't work out. The Briscoes have been there 20 years. And tonight they went out there and had probably I mean, I don't want to say that it's the best. I'd have to go back over a long body of work, but how do you not look at that match tonight and say that is one of the greatest Briscoe brothers matches I've ever seen in Ring of Honor history? It may be their best work, which is saying a lot. You're covering a lot of ground when you say that, and I feel comfortable sitting here and saying that. So, again, I love the main event. I thought it was very smart for Tony Khan to book it in such a way where those guys went on last. Now we see why. Nothing was going to top that main event. Nothing was going to top that main event. It didn't matter if it was a world championship match. The only match that made sense to headline with was the match that we got in the main event tonight. It was also the best promoted match on this show. And that's without the Briscoes making a single appearance on AEW television, not even in a pre-taped video. We know how the Warner executives feel about the Briscoes. And it was the only match, in my opinion, now that we look back on it, that was deserving of that main event spot. So I thought that was the right move to make. You know, we talk about championships. We had 6 championship matches on this pay-per-view. And in all 6 matches, all 6 championship matches, the babyfaces went over. Every single one of them. So apparently Tony Khan wanted to send the crowd home happy tonight, and he did just that. But we also have some breaking news as well. As if we haven't had enough breaking news this weekend, we have even more breaking news now. There is a Comic-Con going on right now out in San Diego. And earlier this evening, there was an AEW panel. I saw Bryan Danielson, I saw Britt Baker, I saw CM Punk. First time we've seen CM Punk since he went under the knife. I don't know if CM Punk answered any questions about his recovery or made any comments about when we might see him back. But the name that made news was Bryan Danielson, who revealed that he was medically cleared and that he will be on Dynamite this Wednesday in the ring one-on-one against Daniel Garcia. I believe he was talking shit back and forth with Chris Jericho. He said, I'm going to be back on Dynamite this Wednesday. I'm going to be taking on Daniel Garcia, who, of course, is a member of the Jericho Appreciation Society. So Danielson being back now, I would have to assume we're headed for a Jericho-Danielson match, given that Jericho is taking credit for putting Danielson out of action. So that's great, because there was still a question about whether or not Bryan Danielson was going to be medically cleared to come back at all. And the fact that he's going to be back on Wednesday, that's a big name for them to get back, right? We still have Punk on the shelf and Kenny Omega, but to get Bryan Danielson back at a time when they have been ravaged, especially the top of the card has been ravaged with injuries in this company. I mean, you saw what happened heading into Forbidden Door. There were so many guys. Adam Cole, another one, right? Adam Cole's going to be out for a while longer. So it's huge for them to be able to get back Bryan Danielson and kind of get the entire Blackpool Combat Club back together. So we found out that. We also found out that Jon Moxley is going to be defending the interim AEW World Championship against Rush on Dynamite this Wednesday. And Rush was on the card tonight. In fact, for the first time ever, he set foot in the ring with his little brother. I don't know how many brothers he has. I think he has at least 2. But first time ever, Rush one-on-one tonight with Dragon Lee. And if it wasn't for that main event with the Briscoes and FTR, I probably would have given Match of the Night honors to Rush and Dragon Lee. I can't do that now, but they had an excellent match on the show tonight. Hit that like button. It would be excellent if you would hit the like button. That's all you need to do. So hit that thumbs up. Super chats are open. I spent over an hour with you guys last night just reading super chats alone, answering all of your questions and reading your comments about the Vince McMahon stuff and whatever you want to ask about, whatever you want to talk about tonight. If it's Ring of Honor, Vince, AEW, whatever it is. If you want to drop a super chat, we will hang out a little bit later on, and we'll go through all those. You'll see them popping up on your screen as well. And as you guys know, if you want to become a channel member, all you got to do is hit the join button down below, and it will give you the information. And then from there, you can choose which level you'd like to sign up for. We picked up a bunch of new members last night. I welcome you. I thank you. So let's get into this show here. So Ring of Honor, this was the second pay-per-view, the second Ring of Honor show under the ownership of Tony Khan. The first event was actually booked before Tony Khan officially bought the company. And there was question about whether or not he would continue on with the Supercard of Honor event. He did. And so that was technically his first Ring of Honor show, and it was well received. This was number 2. Ring of Honor still has no television deal. There's no weekly Ring of Honor television. The only time we get to see Ring of Honor champions and Ring of Honor talents on TV is on either Dynamite or Rampage. Rampage, in some ways, has become a Ring of Honor show. So it's tough to promote some of these matches when you don't have your own show. But you know what I would almost liken it to? The quality of the matches that we had on the show tonight. The thing I used to love about the NXT TakeOver shows, Triple H would usually not have no more than 5 matches. There might have been sometimes, maybe there were 6. He always tried to keep it limited to 5 matches, right? So the shows, it didn't overstay its welcome. They would book these buildings. They would get these loud, energetic crowds that were into everything that they were seeing. And then, of course, the matches would just kick ass, and you would end up with these amazing shows. Tonight was very similar to an old NXT TakeOver show, except for one very important distinction, which is that they did not have the loud, passionate crowd, 10, 15,000 people. You didn't have that tonight. And I heard from one person, one fan of the show who was at the building tonight, who was asking me, how are we sounding? How are we sounding? Right? Oh, they're so hot for this match. I don't know if it was the way the crowd was mic'd. I don't know if it was the acoustics of the building. They were in Lowell, Massachusetts. They were at the Songus Center. I believe they've run there before for old Ring of Honor shows, I believe. But crowd didn't come across all that loud to me on TV. There were moments in some of the key matches where they would, get louder, and it seemed like they were really getting into it. But again, maybe it was a miking issue. I had a couple of people swear to me that the crowd was hot for most of the show in the building. Didn't come across that way on TV. But in terms, I think, of the quality of the show and the quality of the wrestling that you got, in some ways it was, especially with that main event, it was a TakeOver-esque show. It was just missing some of those, extra elements that would really help put it over the top. It was not a big crowd, although it was a lot bigger than what the Ring of Honor of old was doing before Tony Khan bought it. I mean, in most cases, they were lucky to get 1,000 people in the building. There were shows where they weren't even getting that much. And tonight for the show, they had just under 3,000 people in the building. So it's an improvement, at least from what they were doing before. But again, not a lot of people in the building. I thought production-wise, the show looked good. One of my knocks on Ring of Honor of old was the production value. The lighting, the way it looked, it didn't look, it just didn't look, I think, professional enough. Sometimes I'd watch the shows and it would be a turnoff. Production was not an issue tonight because it looked like an AEW show, right? It's probably got AEW production people. So I thought production-wise and the way it was shot and everything, the show looked good. Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman were on the call tonight. I think they work well together. They had a 0-hour pre-show, which opened with Colt Cabana against Anthony Henry, who had J.D. Drake in his corner. ROH 2.0, says Bliss fan. Well, not as colorful, though. We don't have all the rainbow colors. Ring of Honor does not look like you took one of the packets of Starburst and put it in your microwave and set it on 30 seconds and it just exploded. That's kind of what they ended up with for the NXT arena. The lighting is much better on the NXT show. But the lighting, I mean, you look at the NXT show and all the colors and the bright lights, I feel like I'm laying in the chair at the doctor's office or something. So, it's hard to compare the two. But anyway, we had Colt Cabana, who I guess has been banished to Ring of Honor now. Gee, I wonder why. Taking on Anthony Henry. The crowd loved Cabana. Cabana's another one. Cabana, I talked about the Briscoes being the heart and soul of Ring of Honor. Colt Cabana at one time was a staple of Ring of Honor for many years. Right? He was this beloved figure on the show. So now he's the elder statesman. Here we are now 20 years later. And he still gets a great reaction from the Ring of Honor audience. Henry was the early aggressor here in this match. Cabana was starting to fire up, and Henry put him down with a pile driver for a near fall. Cabana rallied. Action spilled outside the ring. J.D. Drake tried to get involved. Cabana punched him, threw Henry back in the ring, and while the referee was focus on Mr. Henry. Drake caught Cabana with a cheap shot. Henry hit a top rope splash on Cabana for a near fall. There was an ugly spot here where Henry went to go do a deadlift German suplex, and he just wasn't strong enough. Colt was a little too heavy for him, whatever it was. It looked like Colt, they turned it into a spot where Colt was dead weighting him. I don't know that that's what happened when he initially grabbed him. I think he was trying for a deadlift German. He couldn't do it. So maybe they called an audible and they, made it look like he was dead weighting him, but it just looked like he couldn't pick him up. So they moved on quickly from that, and Colt locked on the Billy Goat's curse. Drake got up on the apron, caused Cabana to break the hold. Cabana avoided a charging Henry who came in and then used a top rope moonsault for the win. So I thought it was a good match. Nothing more, nothing less. I thought it was a good start to the show, and the people were into Cabana. We had the Shinobi Shadow Squad, which was Eli, Isom, and Cheeseburger against the Trustbusters, Arya Daivari, who is now going by the name Ari, and Slim J. Slim J from the Special K days of the early ROH. Haven't heard that name in a long time. So the story behind the Trustbusters, because I don't know what the Trustbusters are. What the hell are the Trustbusters? Trustbusters, the story here is that Daivari recently came into a bunch of money. And we don't know where the money came from. The announcers have no idea where the money came from. Maybe he robbed a bank. But he has come into money. I guess he's like a playboy now. And anyway, that's the story. So Daivari and Slim J got the heat right away on Cheeseburger. Isom tagged in. He was quickly cut off. Cheeseburger tagged back in. He locked on a lucha submission on Slim J, but got distracted by Daivari. That led to Slim J hitting a wheelbarrow flatliner. Cheeseburger got Slim J on the top rope, and Jay did a tornado double underhook suplex on Cheeseburger. Hit a cutter on Isom, and Daivari then hit a big frog splash on Isom for the pinfall. So, not much to this. A decent match. Nothing really exciting. For whatever reason, though, you want to know what the highlight of this match was? The most entertaining part of this match had nothing to do with anything I just described. It had nothing to do with any of the action in the ring. The funniest part of this, and I have no idea why this happened, although it was the pre-show, so I assume they were just testing the lighting. They had a spotlight on these two fans in the crowd. If you watch the match back, you saw the fans in the background. Thankfully, they're not doing that shit anymore where you have the entranceway on the across from the hard camera. So the fans are in the background, kind of the upper left part of the screen, right? It's mostly dark. And then these two people have a bright spotlight just shining on them. And I'm like, are we supposed to know who these people are? Is this setting up some kind of an angle? Are they going to cut and show like two wrestlers sitting in the crowd? Who are these people? I have no idea who these people are. But the spotlight is on them and it's blinding them, and one of them put shades on. I noticed one of them had sunglasses on indoors. So I don't know what the hell that was about, but it reminded me of when I was blind. I know that feeling. When I was blinded by a spotlight back at WrestleMania. There was an entire AJ Styles Randy Orton match. If you asked me to this day, I couldn't tell you what the hell happened in that match. I couldn't even tell you who won. I didn't see anything. In fact, I got so angry, I marched off onto the concourse. I was walking around for like 20 minutes. So I have no memory of that match at all. So I know what that's like. We had Lexi Nair. Was in the back to interview the returning Prince Nana. Boy, we're talking about old school Ring of Honor. We're talking about Slim J. We're talking about Colt Cabana, the Briscoes. Prince Nana and the Embassy. We're going back now to the days when I first started watching Ring of Honor. Remember those days? Jimmy Rave, all the other guys. So Prince Nana is here, and he says that he has purchased Tully Blanchard Enterprises. He now owns Tully Blanchard, which is no longer known as Tully Blanchard Enterprises. but he worked out some kind of a deal, and he was able to buy Tully Blanchard Enterprises, and he would be managing Brian Cage, the Gates of Agony, and the Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham going forward. Well, that came out of nowhere. I don't really know what to say to that. I have no idea where this came from. I have no idea why this move was made. All I could think is, what a weekend, right? We have Vince McMahon retiring as CEO of his company, and now Tully Blanchard sells off Tully Blanchard Enterprises, and we have a new owner. Boy, things are really changing here. Changing of the guard here in wrestling. I don't know what the hell this is all about. Hopefully Tully is okay health-wise. Hopefully there's no, issues there. This Tully Blanchard Enterprises faction, it only started back in April, right? It's only been a few months. We just saw him on television a couple of weeks ago on Rampage. Jonathan Gresham turns heel. The Ring of Honor World Champion turns heel. Links up with Tully Blanchard. And now it's just Prince Nana. So it's very awkward the way that this whole thing was handled here. But I'm sure in due time we'll find out what the status of Tully Blanchard is. We have Blake Christian, Alex Zane, and Tony Deppen against the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage. Now members of the Embassy. The Embassy is back. That is Prince Nana's old faction. Khan is the one that I took notice of here in this match from the Gates of Agony. Khan is impressive. I can see Khan being a single star at some point. I think he's got star potential. He gave Zayn the double birds about midway through the match, flipped him off, and immediately bailed out of the ring, and he got Zayn to chase him outside and then back into the ring. Toa Leona made a blind tag and then took out Zayn. Brian Cage tagged in, hit a deadlift superplex. Cage hit Zayn with a wheelbarrow suplex and tried to knock Blake Christian off the apron. Christian, though, dodged him and Zayn tagged out. Hit some big moves on Cage before hitting a Fosbury flop to the floor. In doing so, though, as he flipped out over the ring, Gates of Agony caught him on the way down. And then Tony Deppen, who had blind tagged into the match, hit a cannonball out to the floor. So Alex Zane hit a moonsault to the floor on Brian Cage. That led to Christian hitting a springboard 450. Tony Deppen hitting a running knee on Cage, only for 2. All 6 men hit moves on each other. It was, back and forth, a whole parade of big moves here. As Brian Cage went to powerbomb Tony Deppen, Christian and Zayn caught him with a pair of enziguris. And Deppen fired up. He faced off with Leona and Khan, and unfortunately for him, he did not see Brian Cage standing right behind him. This guy was waiting. He was licking his chops. And the heels finished him off with Leona hitting a Dominator. At the same time that he hit the Dominator, Brian Cage came off the ropes with a running boot. It looked awkward. The timing was off. I don't think that's a finisher that is going to work going forward, but that's all they needed to pick up the win here. I thought the match was good. Up until this point, it was the best match on the pre-show. Looking back on it, it ended up being the best match on the pre-show, and it was a win that the Embassy needed. Right? The Embassy is back. You're not going to have the Embassy go in there on night 1 and lose, so it was the right outcome. Last match on the pre-show is Willow Nightingale against Allysin Kay. We got a big reaction for Willow. Sorry, I lapse into my Willow impression, so I can't do it. I can't not say Willow and think of that fucking character. I'm forever scarred by Jeff Hardy. That's all I'm going to think about. That's all I picture in my head whenever I say that. Willow. So we had a big reaction for Willow and her music. She has a catchy theme song. I think her music is what got the reaction. But no, the fans like her. The fans like her. I've seen her work on independent shows before. House of Glory. I've seen her on AEW television. She's very good, and the people like her. She's someone who connects with the audience. So Tony Khan, I think, is smart to use her. I feel like we've been seeing her more often. Allysin kept going for submissions. Willow kept fighting out of them. And Kay finally managed to hit the strong zero for a near fall. Willow came back with the pounce on Kay before hitting a wheelbarrow powerbomb. And then she muscled her up and dropped her for the win. And Kay sold the powerbomb even after the match was over for probably 90 seconds. She got folded up like an accordion, and she's just laying there. She is completely folded up, and she stayed that way for over a minute. And the announcers talked about Willow working her way up to trying to work her way up to an eventual shot at the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. Yes, I am aware that Jeff Hardy had another character called Itchweed. He has a lot of characters. But Willow is the one that sticks with me. Willow is the one that you know what it reminds me of? Jeepers Creepers. Whatever that thing was in the movie Jeepers Creepers. That reminds me of Willow. So that was it for the pre-show. Now it was on to the main card, right? That was the appetizer. Now we're on to the main course. The main card opened with a surprise, and that surprise was the fact that we were opening the show with a Ring of Honor World Championship match. Jonathan Gresham with Prince Nana in his corner, defending the ROH World title against Claudio Castagnoli, accompanied by William Regal, who came down to the ring with Claudio and took a seat at ringside on commentary for the match. The story coming into this was very simple. Claudio has never been a world champion before. Claudio was in Ring of Honor previously. He was in a bunch of different promotions. He was in WWE for over a decade. And in WWE, I believe he was the U.S. champion once very early in his career. Otherwise, he was a tag team guy, tag team champion. Nowhere that he has ever been in his career, certainly no major promotion, Claudio has never held a world title. He never even got a championship main event on a pay-per-view until last year. He got the one match with Roman Reigns. That was it. In all the years he was in WWE, that was the only time he ever challenged in a main event on pay-per-view for a world title. And so the story was he is trying to finally win the big one. He is finally, having an opportunity here to prove that he can hang and he can be that top guy. That was the only real story going into this match. This match was announced. It was very sudden, which is why I was thinking that they were not going to do a title change here. Even though I said if it were me booking this, I would do a title change. I didn't actually think that they were going to go ahead and do it, though. So they said there was a coin toss in the back. This was the match that was chosen, which meant FTR and the Briscoes would be getting the main event spot at the end of the show, which obviously was the right move. Gresham and Prince Nana are an interesting combo. We'll see, again, where this goes, especially given that he lost this match. But Prince Nana was outside the ring. Both men shook hands before the match. They were adhering to the code of honor. Claudio caught him with a giant swing in the opening minute of the match. I mean, he must have spun this guy probably 20 times. Gresham came back, hit a drop kick to the knee of Claudio, which was key because that was his focus in this match, going after the knee. Castagnoli countered with a wheelbarrow backbreaker. He went for the sharpshooter, but he couldn't get it on because of the knee. So he gave up. He had a standing double stomp on Gresham for a 2 count. And again, Gresham went back to the knee. And he was focusing on the injured knee, trying to wear down Claudio while going after the knee. Gresham tried for a German. He couldn't do it, though, because Claudio had been going after his back earlier. So both guys working a body part. Old school wrestling here. Work a body part. They were both doing that here in this match. Gresham responded with a shotgun drop kick, went for an ankle lock. Claudio, though, made it to the ropes. Gresham hit a hard shot. That only pissed off Claudio. Gresham continued with the chops. Claudio hit a hard European uppercut and tried for a UFO, but his knee gave out, so Gresham hit a lion salt and rolled into a German suplex for 2. And then, 11 minutes into this match, Claudio hits the Ricola Bomb. And he pins Jonathan Gresham to become the new Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I'm fine with them not doing the usual parade of kicking out of finishers and, 2.5, and then they hit another finish and he kicks out, and they do another one and he kicks out. In a way, it's kind of refreshing that Claudio hit his finish and he got the win. But it was so sudden. Barely over 10 minutes into this match. And again, one Ricola bomb, and that was it. 1, 2, 3. And just like that, we have a new world champion. The finish just to me, it felt like we were just getting started. You could have gotten 18 minutes, 16 minutes, 20 minutes out of your world title match here in the opener, I thought. It felt like there was still more to come, and then it just ended out of nowhere. So it was very sudden. But they showed Claudio there. He won the title, and he's got this shocked look on his face. Tears in his eyes. He can't believe it. They shot confetti out of the ring posts. For the first time in his career, you can call this man a world champion. William Regal got up from the commentary desk. They had a shot of him looking into the ring, and he looked like a proud father as he was watching Claudio celebrate his big championship win. And but again, it never rose to the level of a classic world title match. It was missing that little something extra. But the Blackpool Combat Club, they now have 2 world champions in their faction. We have Jon Moxley as the interim AEW world champion, and now we have Claudio as the Ring of Honor world champion for the first time. He took a victory lap around the ring. He put the title around his waist. And again, I don't want to make it sound like it was a bad match. For the time it lasted, it was actually very good. But this was not on the level of a classic Ring of Honor world title match that I think if you're a Ring of Honor fan, you are accustomed to seeing. This did not get to that level. This did not rise to that level, but it was still very good. And I am very happy to see Claudio get his moment. If I were booking this, I would have made the same move that Tony Khan did. And I said this months ago when you still didn't know what move Claudio was going to make. I was hoping that Tony Khan would have him in mind if he was serious about running Ring of Honor, continuing to run it, and was able to get a television show. Claudio is the guy I would have built around as my world champion. He's got the history in Ring of Honor, never held a world title before, big fan favorite, great athlete, right? In some ways underappreciated. Now he can go out there and prove and show what he can really do. He is the perfect person, I think, to be the face of the new Ring of Honor. And for him to be in that world title position, right? And he's on Dynamite every week as well. Part of the Blackpool Combat Club. He's getting exposure there. He can walk out. He's wearing the ROH title because they still have no TV. So, it's important that Ring of Honor have some representation on TV. He is the perfect person right now for that spot. I would have made the exact same move that Tony Khan did. As far as the Jonathan Gresham thing, it's very weird. They had him turn heel and link up with Tully Blanchard only a couple of weeks ago. And now Tully Blanchard is gone, and Gresham is managed by a completely different person. And on top of that, he goes into this match tonight, and he works a totally clean match. Even though he turned heel, there was nothing heelish about Jonathan Gresham on this show. He worked, like I said, a totally clean match. And when the match was over, he put his hand out and he shook hands with Claudio. Paid his respect and congratulated him, and he walked off. Nothing heelish at all. So it's very strange what they're doing right now with Jonathan Gresham. I'm not exactly sure what they're going for here. Gresham had 224 days as the Ring of Honor World Champion. 224 very underwhelming days as the Ring of Honor World Champion. Largely because Ring of Honor did not run a show this year until April. When the announcement was made that Ring of Honor was going to go dark, that was late last year. They didn't run any shows until Supercard of Honor in April. So you had this entire period of time, and maybe he was defending it on independent shows, but I'm talking Ring of Honor shows. There were none. Until April, until WrestleMania time, there were no Ring of Honor shows this year. So, of course, it was a mostly underwhelming reign. He won the belt in December. There was no ROH show until April. And since April, there has not been an ROH show until tonight. So I'm not even blaming Jonathan Gresham. Jonathan Gresham is a very good professional wrestler. And through no fault of his own, he ended up having, I think, one of the least memorable and frankly worst runs of any Ring of Honor World Champion in history. And I don't blame him for it at all. That's just the way it worked. Just the way it worked out. Circumstances were what they were. But it will not go down as a memorable title run, to say the least. So we had Dalton Castle and the boys. They were out next. It's been, and again, I am aware of the fact that he defended the title in Impact as well. I mean, come on, it's fucking Impact. I'm talking Ring of Honor. We're talking Ring of Honor shows. I don't watch Impact. A lot of people don't watch Impact. Ring of Honor fans, not every Ring of Honor fan was watching Impact either. Ring of Honor fans want to watch a Ring of Honor show. So the fact that he may have been defending the title for months in Impact doesn't mean anything. It's still one of the more underwhelming reigns in the history of Ring of Honor. We had Dalton Castle and the boys. I mean, it's been long enough. I would think by now they would be men. They took on the Righteous team of Vincent, Bateman, and Dutch. I almost said Butch. I still have Butch on the brain. This was for the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team titles. By the way, I learned my lesson after last night when I went without the air conditioning. So I have it on now. If you hear anything, potentially. It would be the AC. It is so hot. When I was done last night, because we went very late last night on the street, with all the news and the super chats and everything else, and I'm under the lights and all this, and I stood up, and it was like 2:00 in the morning or whatever it was, and I just wanted to take a shower. It was awful. So hopefully wherever you guys are, I hope you're at least somewhat comfortable. You don't hear anything? Good. Good. That's what I like to hear. So I am not familiar with the Righteous. I'm not familiar with their act. I have not seen them work before, but I took one look at Dutch, and I said, this guy reminds me of the Big Boss Man. Just the way he looks and the way he was dressing. He was kind of dressing like Big Bubba from back in the day, when Bubba didn't catch Jim Cornette when he fell off the scaffold. But just his body type and his face and everything, he reminded me so much of the Big Boss Man. And it was funny to me because then a few minutes later on commentary, I don't remember if it was Ian Riccaboni or Caprice Coleman, mentioned the Big Boss Man. Because I think he actually used a Boss Man slam in this match. So I thought that was kind of funny. I said, oh, I guess I'm not the only one who thinks of the Big Boss Man when I look at this guy. And old Dutch here also pulled off a flip dive out over the top rope late in the match. I never saw the Big Boss Man do a flip dive out over the top rope. I mean, does this guy even know how to work? Come on. No flip dives from the Big Boss Man. No tope suicidas from Hacksaw Jim Duggan. These guys don't know how to work. I feel like I was misled. All these years, I grew up a young wrestling fan, and I'm watching television. I'm watching the DiBiases and the Duggans and the Steamboats and the Perfects and the Rudes and the Warriors and all these different people. And I thought they were great pro wrestlers, and I thought they knew how to work. Now I look back, and I'm like, I never saw them do a tope. I never saw them do a tope con hero. I never saw them do any a 450 triple somersault. Those guys didn't know how to work. So Castle threw his boys onto the members of the Righteous while they were all out at ringside. And the boys kept coming back into the ring, and Castle would keep throwing them back out. And this went on for so long, I was getting angry. I said enough already. Dutch threw one of the boys back inside the ring and then powerbombed him. And Vincent then performed a swanton and had the pin, but Castle broke it up to big applause from the crowd. Vincent hit a tope on Castle. Castle, though, hit a rebounding Hurricane Rana on Vincent before tagging in and hitting a huge German suplex on Dutch, and then the bangarang on Bateman to win the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team titles to begin their second reign with the belts. The crowd loved that. They were big into Dalton and the boys. I think that AEW could use 6-man titles more than Ring of Honor could right now. I just think there's a lot more competition in that division in AEW. So, and I'm not usually one to say, oh, we need more belts. AEW already has a lot of belts. I never would have introduced the All-Atlantic Championship, but I don't make those decisions. But I do think they have enough talent and they have enough teams there to make a set of trios belts work. So I think that would work better there than it would here. Then we had Wheeler Yuta of the Blackpool Combat Club. He is the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, defending his title against Daniel Garcia. William Regal was back out on commentary. No closed fists to the face. 20 count outside the ring, and the title could change hands on a pinfall, submission, countout, or disqualification. We had a 60-minute time limit. And these two had gone to a 1-hour draw. I think it might have been their first match they ever had. It was on an independent show. I don't remember where, but I know they went to a 60-minute draw at one point. So this had a 60-minute time limit. They had judges for the match if they were necessary. They were Josh Woods, John Walter, and Ace Steel. And these two started out right away with grappling. The Pure title, if you're not familiar with what the Pure title is, it's meant to be more, sports oriented. They have all these different rules and rope breaks, and you're only allowed a certain number of them. It's a whole laundry list of rules. And it's a very technical style. These two happen to work very well at a technical style. Zack Sabre Jr. would fucking own the Pure title if he was in Ring of Honor. Okay, that's the kind of division that if it's even a division, but that's the kind of title the Pure Championship is meant to be. So what I loved about this is, I mentioned William Regal came back out. And William Regal was on commentary, and this was, in many ways, the perfect match for William Regal to sit in on commentary. And this is where you really heard what William Regal brings to the table in these types of situations. One of the ways that he is so valuable to Tony Khan is in situations like tonight, when he sat in on commentary, because especially in a match like this, where it's very technically focused, you had Regal on commentary talking about how, he has history with Ring of Honor and how he sent many young wrestlers to ROH while he worked for WWE, because Ring of Honor was the foundation of pro wrestling. And he noted that he gave Bryan Danielson his tights and his boots, which, he wore for years in Ring of Honor. And he was really, putting over these two. He's putting over Yuta. He was putting over Daniel Garcia. He was talking about a lot of the little things they were doing throughout the match and why they were doing it. And Yuta transitioned from a single leg crab to a bow and arrow lock on Garcia. And Yuta managed to hit a series of German suplexes before transitioning to a double wrist lock and going for the Kimura. So to break free, Daniel Garcia, very unsportsmanlike, decides to bite Yuta on the ear. Like Yuta was Evander Holyfield. He starts biting him on the ear. And Regal again starts talking about the ear. And when Garcia started to scrape with his boot, he was or maybe it was forearms, he was scraping the ear. And Regal was talking about how that's very painful and that's how you get cauliflower ear. And he's explaining all of this. So again, dropping knowledge on commentary. One of the many reasons why William Regal is such a valuable person to have around for Tony Khan, whether it's AEW or it's Ring of Honor. I don't know what Regal is doing behind the scenes, if he's assisting in any way as some kind of a producer or offering up ideas. But again, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm tapping into this guy as a big resource. And I still shake my head when I think back and I realize that WWE let this guy go. And I know he spent many years there. And Regal credits the company and Vince McMahon for looking after him and saving his life and, giving him a place to work and a place to ply his trade. And he enjoyed his time there. But how do you get rid of somebody like William Regal? You could learn from William Regal for the rest of your life. You could be around this guy every day for 20 years and still be learning something new every single day. That's the kind of knowledge base that William Regal has. It still puzzles me that of all the people they decided to cut, he was one of those people. But WWE's loss is Tony Khan's gain. So both men were exchanging hard chops, slaps in the middle of the ring. They were on their knees. Before getting back to their feet, they were slapping each other around, and Garcia went down after a hard shot. Yuta asked for a 10 count because he thought he had knocked him out, but Garcia ended up getting back up at the count of 9. Garcia and Yuta, they exchanged a series of submission attempts, but Garcia went back too far on the sharpshooter. And when he did, Yuta ended up locking on the Bulldog choke. Garcia locked on a Regal stretch, but he wasn't able to lock it in properly. Yuta locked on the Lion Tamer. Garcia, though, had to make the first rope break of the match to escape. You know, now that I think about it, outside of that one rope break, this was basically a normal match. There was really nothing else. You think of the rules and things they were allowed to do and, you know, how many rope breaks they had and everything. That was it. Outside of the one rope break, this was basically just a regular match. That was the only time the pure rules really came into effect. Garcia hit a pile driver on Yuta for 2 and then decided to do the Bryan Danielson stomps on him. Yuta, though, dodged it, and he trapped Garcia in a roll-up for the quick pinfall to retain the title. They gave these guys 16 minutes. They gave the pure title more time than they gave to the World Heavyweight title on this show. No code of honor for the sports entertainer. After the match, Garcia flipped him off, and he walked to the back. These two put on a technical clinic here in this match. I thought that this was a great, just pure professional wrestling. I mean, no pun intended. A great, pure professional wrestling match. I very much enjoyed it. This was the best thing on the show up to this point. Next up, we had a battle of the brothers. We had ROH going one-on-one against Dragon Lee for the first time ever. I just want to welcome everybody who is joining here tonight. We are doing a rare Ring of Honor review here for Death Before Dishonor, this, I guess, new and improved version of Ring of Honor, and picked a hell of a show. So if you tuned into the show tonight as I did, you were treated to one of the best shows of the year. There have been quite a few of those this year. A lot of them have been put on by Tony Khan. It's funny how that works, right? For all the shit that he gets. I look back on this year, and I actually enjoyed WrestleMania. On the whole, I thought this was one of the best WrestleManias they've done, frankly, in years. So WWE has had some strong shows as well, but, you know, Tony Khan, you think back to Revolution. We just had Double or Nothing. We just had Forbidden Door. We had Ring of Honor tonight. And they are just firing on all cylinders with these shows. When the year is over, I think it's going to be hard to top one of these Tony Khan shows for best show of the year. But we have ROH and Dragon Lee. Now, I have read in the past about this amazing back knee that ROH has. And I never noticed it because I don't stare and I don't try to pay attention to these things. But sometimes it is just so obvious. For example, when Gene Snitsky used to wrestle, I couldn't help but not notice. Whenever I would see this guy, if they had like a close-up camera shot or something, all the fucking back knee all over his back, and it's like, holy shit, dude. So I never really noticed it until tonight. There was a point in the match where the camera had this close-up shot of ROH's back. And I'm looking at this, and I'm just thinking to myself, it kind of lingered, and I was like, holy shit. It was something else. It was definitely something else. Whatever he's doing, he might want to just dial it back a little bit. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe the heat brings it out. I don't know. So ROH was frustrated early on. Got very frustrated by his little brother, and so he struck his little brother. Dragon Lee responded by hitting a huge kick to the face. ROH responded to that by hitting a shotgun drop kick and a tope. Dragon Lee ended up on the outside. with Roosh and sat him on a table at ringside. So there was I don't think it was occupied. I don't think it was being used. But there was a Jinder, of course. Yes, of course. How could I forget Jinder Mahal? When Jinder Mahal got his big push when he was the WWE champion and his physique transformed magically on television, he was riddled with that. It was so fucking gross. And then he went away. He got hurt. He came back, and he actually looked like a normal human being. He looked like an actual normal human being. But yes, how could I forget Jinder? But he was rewarded nicely, wasn't he? He was rewarded with the WWE Championship for 6 months. How many times did he get to beat Shinsuke Nakamura? He was very kindly rewarded. So anyway, as I was saying, they're on the outside. And Dragon Lee lays Roosh down on this table. And he gets back in the ring and he hits the ropes, and Dragon Lee lawn darts himself. He lawn darts himself like a torpedo. Through the ropes, through the table, through his brother. And the table collapses. So that was a pretty crazy, dangerous spot. The first of several crazy spots that we saw in this match. Once he recovered, he rolled Roosh back inside, hit a double stomp off the top. Only got 2. There was another crazy spot where Roosh was seated on the apron. He was sitting down. And Dragon Lee backed up a little bit. He was getting ready to do something on the apron. They're both on the apron. Dragon Lee comes charging in, and Roosh quickly stands up. And as Dragon Lee is coming in at him, he grabs his brother and he flings him overhead. An overhead throw. And Dragon Lee goes all the way down and crashes onto the ground below. That was fucking crazy. That was a crazy spot. Dragon Lee, though, came right back 90 seconds later he was back in the ring, and he comes charging in at Roosh, who's still on the apron. Dragon Lee's in the ring. He comes in, and he jumps over the rope, and he hits this jumping Rana out over the top rope. And the idea is that he'll take Roosh over for a Hurricane Rana off the apron, and Roosh will hit the floor. The problem with the spot is that there was a delay. There was a delay in him taking the bump. So Dragon Lee came in and he did the Rana, but then there was like a second that went by, and then Roosh jumped. And it looked very goofy, and he took a big bump on the floor, but it looked very silly. So both guys made it back into the ring, just barely beat the 20 count back into the ring. Inside, there was another overhead suplex by Roosh. This time it was into the buckles in the corner. Roosh then delivered the bull's horns, which is his drop kick to the face in the corner. He went for the pin. Dragon Lee kicked out, which on commentary they said that may have been the first time ever that anybody is kicked out from that move. There was a double stomp off the top to Roosh while he was hanging upside down in the Tree of Woe in the corner, but then Roosh kicked out at 1. Dragon Lee delivered a sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count, and a running knee strike, which he calls the incinerator, for another 2. So Roosh, at that point now, he's staggering around. Dragon Lee went to go pick him up to do the next spot. And it looked like Roosh might have been hurt, or maybe he was knocked loopy, maybe he was concussed. It looked like something was wrong. And it looked like he was trying to talk to his brother, and maybe he was really hurt. And he was trying to figure out what's going on. So then he went to go pin him, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he is hurt. You know, if they think he's concussed or something, let's just pin him and go home and go right to the finish. So he went to go cover his brother, and again, Roosh kicked out at 1. And Roosh gets back up to his feet, and he delivers a super kick to Dragon Lee. That knocked Dragon Lee backwards into the corner. And Roosh then delivered the bull's horns for a second time, and this time he got the 3 count. So he pulled one over on his brother. He was acting all loopy. He was acting like he might have been hurt. And when his brother showed sympathy, he lowered the boom on his brother. That's like something I would do to my brother. Win at all costs. Doesn't matter who you're in the ring with. As long as you win, that's all that matters. So he pulled one over on his bro. He got the win. I thought this was excellent. It was a great example of what Roosh can do when he's really allowed to go out there and perform and show people what he can do. And we have not yet seen that in AEW. He has not been in AEW for very long. I know Tony Khan is waiting to get Andrade back. Andrade has had inflammation in his ankles. He's going to be wrestling next weekend, tagging with his father-in-law, no matter what. But until the inflammation goes down, Tony Khan is keeping him out. He's trying to book Andrade and Rush against the Lucha Bros. That's the match that he wants to do. So, we saw what these two did in the ring tonight. Now imagine getting Rush in the ring with Andrade against the Lucha Bros. Imagine the fucking insanity that we'll see in that match. And as soon as Andrade is ready to work again, Tony Khan is going to book that match. That is going to be a spectacle. That is what that match is going to be. We had Mercedes Martinez taking on Serena Deeb for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. It's too bad the crowd sounded like they were half dead for most of this, because I thought these women had a great match here. They went out there. We know what Serena Deeb can do. And Mercedes Martinez has been doing this also for over 20 years. She's no rookie. She's been doing this for a long time. So you put the two of them in the ring together, and you end up with what I thought was a very good match. Deeb applied a dragon sleeper and then flipped over from the middle rope into a cutter for a 2 count. Martinez rallied and got Deeb seated on the top rope and tried to suplex her, but Deeb held on. So Martinez ended up locking in this cool looking submission while she was kind of seated on the top rope and leaning back, and I just thought it looked cool. Martinez later on went for a surfboard stretch, but Deeb bit her on the arm. A lot of biting going on tonight. Serena hit a tornado DDT and then applied the Serenity Lock. Crowd finally, first time in the match, the crowd came to life. Martinez rolled out of the hold into a pin for a 2 count. Serena performed a dragon screw and drove Martinez's left knee into the mat several times. She would pick up the leg and smash the knee repeatedly into the mat. Deeb grabbed Martinez's leg, but Mercedes rolled over and sent Deeb crashing into the corner. And she stood up under Deeb and got her in position for an electric chair and left her standing on the middle rope, right? So she's standing on the middle rope is Serena Deeb. Martinez kicked Deeb and then hit an OG drop for 2. And Martinez applied her Brass City Sleeper submission. She forced Serena finally. She held out as long as she could, but she could hold out no more. And Serena tapped out. And Mercedes Martinez retains her Ring of Honor Women's Championship. This could have gone either way. It was tough to pick a winner in this match. It 50-50. Could have gone either way. I thought we might get a title change, but I've got no complaints about the match that we got. This was very good stuff from these two. And in fact, I think this was better than pretty much almost any women's match I've seen in AEW. And all of these people work for Tony Khan. They all work for the same person. So how is it that we can, now I understand this is a pay-per-view, but how is it that we can get the quality of match that we got from these two women here in this match, and we can't get that quality more consistently on AEW television? That's what I would like to know. Tony Khan needs to watch this match back again and realize that there are a lot of very talented women who are under his employ, who work for him right now, who could go out there and have these kinds of matches on a more consistent basis if they're given the time and the opportunity to do so. But this was better than almost anything I've seen from the women in AEW in a very long time. Samoa Joe defending the Ring of Honor television title against Jay Lethal. We have not seen Joe in a while. Joe has been off filming for the role of Sweet Tooth on the Twisted Metal TV show that is coming to Peacock very soon. So Samoa Joe will be back on Peacock very soon. Lethal entered first. Before Lethal even got to the ring, though, they played Samoa Joe's music, and here he comes. We have not seen Joe in a very long time. He comes out, white towel around the neck. He's got the TV title. He's got that pissed-off look on his face. And before Jay Lethal could even get into the ring, Joe comes down. We've got a brawl in the aisleway. The bell has not even rung yet, and these two are already going at it outside the ring. Lethal managed to make a comeback on him because Joe was kind of getting the upper hand. And Lethal got in the ring, and Lethal does this thing where he'll do the constant dives. One dive through the ropes, right? Back inside, second dive, come back in the ring, third dive. So he hit 3 dives out onto Samoa Joe. Lethal hit some hard chops on Joe before putting Joe in the corner by the guardrails. And he was going to go for Joe's Olay kick on the floor. Joe responded with a chop and then kicked Lethal through the guardrail. Joe went to go put Lethal through the announce table. All of a sudden, Satnam Singh sneaks up front. It's hard for him to sneak because the guy's like 7'5". But he sneaks up from behind Joe and hits him in the back. Since the match hasn't started yet, there is no disqualification. The bell hasn't rung. Lethal wrapped a chair around Joe's arm and shoved him into the ring post, trying to injure the arm before getting back into the ring. The referee refused to start the match until Satnam Singh left the ringside area and went to the back, which he did without any incident, and thankfully, we did not see him again for the rest of the night, which is the way that it should be. So Lethal hit a European uppercut on Joe, and Joe responded with a palm strike that almost knocked him out. Lethal then hit an enziguri on Joe before collapsing. We got the trademark Samoa Joe dive through the ropes, the forearm dive. Lethal broke up a powerbomb attempt by attacking Joe's injured arm, but he ate a snap power slam coming off the ropes. Lethal ducked an STO attempt from Joe and hit the Lethal combination. And Lethal put Joe on the top rope, and he was going to go for Joe's own muscle buster. Joe shoved him off. Joe came off the ropes then with a giant leg lariat for a near fall. It's not very often you see Samoa Joe going aerial and taking to the skies, but he did there. Joe then went for the muscle buster, but Lethal slipped out. He hit the lethal injection, and Joe barely kicked out at 3. A great near fall. The crowd loved it. They popped huge when Joe kicked out. Lethal charged at Joe, but he ate an STO in the corner. Joe called for the muscle buster, but as he went for it, Sanjay Dutt now distracts the referee, and that allows Jay Lethal to hit Joe in the head with the television belt. Joe then kicked out again, and again the crowd roared because they thought that was the finish, and so did I. I thought that was the end of the match. Lethal tried for the lethal injection a second time, but Joe caught him and went for the rear naked choke. Lethal caught him with a jawbreaker and went for a dragon suplex, but Joe pulled Lethal back into the coquina clutch. There was nowhere for Jay Lethal to go, and he submitted, and Samoa Joe is still the Ring of Honor World Television Champion. They had a very good match. Those near falls down the stretch were excellent, and the people were hanging on to each near fall there at the end. This may have been the best Samoa Joe match that he has had since the match with Brock Lesnar. And that was only 6 minutes long, but that was a great match. For the 6 minutes it lasted, it was a great match. Just like the match that Brock had with Goldberg at WrestleMania 33. They redeemed themselves. It only went 6 minutes. That was a great match too. This was the best Samoa Joe match since the Great Balls of Fire match with Brock Lesnar. Joe brought his A game tonight. This was Joe looking extra motivated here on this show. And Jay Lethal now goes into his tag team match next weekend with Jeff Jarrett against Ric Flair and Andrade with a loss. Jay Lethal is going to be in the main event of the final Ric Flair match, the Ric Flair pay-per-view coming up next Sunday, which, yes, I had a couple of people ask me via email. I will be covering that live. So I'll be back here on YouTube after that show is over next Sunday. So you got SummerSlam on Saturday and then the Ric Flair pay-per-view on Sunday. And then it was time. I better take a drink here before we get into this because this was quite the main event that we had here on this show tonight. Best 2 out of 3 falls for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. FTR defending against the former champions Jay and Mark Briscoe. Tony Khan did make it official this week that the Briscoes are signed to long-term contracts with Ring of Honor. So they'll be staying in the place where they have made a name for themselves now for past 20 years. Both teams spent the first few minutes of this feeling each other out because they knew they were going 40 minutes. Right? It's like being in an Ironman match, or if you're going to go the distance in a 60-minute marathon match. If you know that going in, you're not going to start hot and gas yourself out, a quarter of the way into the match. You want to conserve your energy. You want to build slowly and build and build and build until you get to those big moments. So just the way that they were working here at the beginning, you knew we were going to get a long match. I thought there was a chance they might go the distance, that they might go the full 60. They came close. They were only about 15 minutes away from doing so. So it started out on the slow side. Cash Wheeler was being worked over, but he was able to make the tag to Dax Harwood. And he ate a super kick from Jay, who tried for the Jay Driller, which once upon a time won him a world championship. Dax, though, avoided it. He dropped him with a DDT for 2. Harwood took a slingshot, though, after that. Took a slingshot into the corner. And the Briscoes hit the Doomsday Device. They got him up on their shoulders. They hit the Doomsday Device. And they got the pin to win the first fall of the match. And Dax, they showed 2 replays of this. And Dax looked like he landed right on his head on the way down. It's the same move that broke Henry Godwin's neck when LOD hit Henry Godwin with the Doomsday Device back in 97. I remember that, too. I remember them showing the replay in slow-mo. And just the way that he took that bump off his shoulders, you could see where, just crack, landed right on his neck and broke his neck. But he was okay here. He did not have long to recover, though. Only had a matter of seconds, 30 seconds maybe, to recover. Before the second fall began, Mark Briscoe chopped the shit out of him. He had him up against the ring post. And Mark was laying it in hard. I mean, you could hear Walter would be proud of these chops. He was laying these chops in to the point where he split his chest open and he started bleeding. Then they zoomed in on Dax's chest. You could see where the blood was starting to come down his chest. He was popping those capillaries like I used to be popping bottles back in the day at the club many years ago. Right? Studio 54. I wasn't around for Studio 54. At least I wasn't old enough to be in Studio 54. But I've heard stories. Heard stories about Studio 54. So anyway, his chest was a mess. So we got the 20-minute call from Bobby Cruz. 40 minutes to go here in this match. When Dax got close to Cash for the tag, Jay booted Cash Wheeler off the apron. So there was nobody for Harwood to tag. Dax hit a high-angle back suplex off the top rope to Jay. But this time when Dax tried to make the tag again, it was Mark Briscoe who yanked Wheeler off the apron at the very last second. So again, for the second time, there was nobody for Dax Harwood to tag out to. The Briscoes hit the redneck boogie on Harwood, folded him up. There was no Cash Wheeler, so it looked like this might be the winning. I mean, you knew it wasn't going to be. But, there was no Cash. Could this be it? Is this going to be the final fall? And he kicked out on his own at 2.5. And then finally, Harwood was able to make the tag to Wheeler. He came in. He ran roughshod on both Briscoes. Brainbuster to Mark. Only got him a 2 count. Wheeler dropped Mark with the gory special while Dax held on to Jay's leg to stop him from breaking up the pin attempt. Mark kicked out anyway, so it didn't matter. And then things broke down. Mark and Cash, they fought outside the ring. Jay brawled into the crowd with Dax. We lost sight of them. We don't know where they went. Mark and Cash fought back into the ring, and we see Jay Briscoe came back. I don't know what happened to Dax, but here comes Jay. He's back now. And he cracked Wheeler right in the head with the ring bell. Wheeler had his head sticking through the ropes, and Jay just cracked him with the ring bell. Referee did not see it. Mark Briscoe went for the pin to take it 2 falls to none, but Wheeler kicked out. Not unscathed. He came up bloody from the bell shot to the head. We got a froggy bow to Cash Wheeler, but Dax reached in and yanked Jay out of the ring to break up the fall. Harwood dropped Jay on the ring steps with a flapjack, and inside the ring, FTR caught Jay Briscoe, or it might have been Mark. I think it might have been Mark Briscoe, but they caught him with the big rig. We were 30 minutes into this match. And now it has been evened up at one fall apiece. Briscoes won the first fall. FTR won the second fall. We're all knotted up at one. 30 minutes down, 30 minutes to go. Now things are really starting to pick up, right? Because they started slow and they built. Now here we are. We're right around the midway or just past the midway point of this match. And again, it just built and built and built. And so now we were getting into the really dramatic stuff here in this match. Third and deciding fall. It's Cash Wheeler and Mark Briscoe, both men bleeding from the head. A Uranage slam to Cash. In comes Dax. He eats a Uranage suplex as well. Mark tried for another Uranage to Dax out on the apron. Dax stuffed it. Mark caught him with a palm thrust to the throat. Dax falls to the floor. And then Mark comes diving off the apron with a blockbuster on the floor. Now we go back inside. We've got Jay Briscoe. We've got Dax Harwood. They're the legal men, I think. It's hard to keep track of these things sometimes. I believe at this point they were the legal men. Harwood stuck him with a pile driver. Straight fucking down on his head. He just stuffed this guy with a great pile driver. Almost pained me that he kicked out of it. But he did kick out. And the Briscoes got Dax up for another Doomsday Device attempt. Cash, though, shoved Mark off the top rope to break it up. And then Paul Turner, the referee, got caught by an errant shot by Dax Harwood. Down went the referee. So now we have no ref. And, of course, Jay connects with the J Driller. How convenient, there's no referee. He hits the J Driller. He gets the visual pin. Visual pins do not win you titles in wrestling. So a visual pin is worth about the same amount as, the gum that you will find on the bottom of your shoe. It doesn't mean shit. So the match continues. FTR then hit the big rig for the second time in this match. Dropped Jay Briscoe. Cash rolled Paul Turner back into the ring to make the pin, but Jay kicked out at 2.5. So now FTR is setting up for the old Power and Glory Powerplex, right? The suplex from one side, the big splash from the other. I love that move. Love that move. I've always been a fan of that move. It's the biggest contribution that Power and Glory ever made to the wrestling business was the Powerplex. Love that move. But we ended up not getting it here. They were setting up for it. Mark Briscoe, though, shoved Wheeler off the top rope. And the Briscoes managed to hit that second Doomsday Device of the match to Harwood, the one they went for before. This time they got it. Second Doomsday Device of the match. Seemingly they had the match won, but Wheeler reached in and broke up the fall at the last second. There was a botched spot where Wheeler went to go suplex Mark, and it was the only blemish on the entire match, and I'm sure he's going to beat himself up over it. But he went to go do the old Bret Hart Dynamite Kid Stampede suplex spot. Because I say Bret and Dynamite because they're the first ones I ever saw do this. Where you suplex the guy out over the top rope and both guys end up tumbling out to the floor, right? Which is dangerous because there's so many things that could go wrong with that spot, but it always looks great. So that's what Wheeler was going for here with Mark Briscoe. The problem is Mark didn't go over. And he ended up basically ricocheting himself back over into the ring, and then he just kind of fell down and landed on his head. And both guys rolled out to the floor. After that, we got dueling submissions a few minutes later in the ring with both Briscoes applying submissions to both members of FTR. Dax reached his hand out. Cash reached his hand out. They were both holding onto each other's hands. This was not meant to be some kind of tender moment. They were trying to make sure the other did not submit. Both men wanted to make sure that the other one did not tap out. I'm almost positive we had a spot like that in a revival match from NXT back in the day. It might have been the revival against DIY at one of the takeover shows. I'm almost positive. It was either against DIY or American Alpha. But I want to say it was DIY against these two. So now we were 40 minutes in when Cash Wheeler took Mark Briscoe from the top rope all the way to the floor with a back suplex through a table. And I watched this spot and I just thought to myself, fuck. The back of Mark Briscoe's head took the full brunt of that bump through the table. Now, it could have been worse. I mean, he could have smacked the edge of the table and the table couldn't have broken. The table did break, but again, the back of his head took the full impact of that fall. And I'm sure that did not feel good and could have very well been Concussion City for him. In the ring, Jay hit the J Driller to Dax, but Dax kicked out at 2 3/4, as close as you could possibly come on a kick out. He kicked out. Harwood and Jay wound up on the ropes, and Harwood landed a pile driver to Jay from the middle rope. We got a middle rope pile driver. He drove this man head first down into the mat, and thank God he did not kick out. That's all I can say about that. Thank God he did not kick out, because if he did, I was going to go off. I was ready. I was ready to come on here and just fucking go off. If you hit a pile driver off the middle rope, then that better be the fucking finish. Thankfully, it was. What a finish it was to a classic, a 45-minute classic between two of the best tag teams in the entire world, doing their thing for the second time this year. These guys went out and they had a match of the year candidate. I thought this was every bit as great as their first match and better. They found a way to top the match from April with what they did on this show tonight. And this was tag team wrestling at its finest. All right, starts slowly, it builds. You've got some big spots in there. You're trying to tell a story. You've got two guys. This guy, holding on, trying to make sure the partner doesn't tap out. Dramatic near falls where you think the match is over. I could always pick it apart and say, man, I wish he didn't kick out of this, and I wish they wouldn't have kicked out of that. But, again, at least the pile driver off the middle rope was the finish. And hopefully, everybody comes out of that relatively healthy. Dax Harwood got on the mic after the match and said, "Motherfucker, I love professional wrestling." And he said, "Professional wrestling saved my life. I don't care if you call me a fucking mark. I love this shit." And he wished everybody well, and they played FTR's music. And then all of a sudden, out on the stage comes Claudio Castagnoli, the brand new Ring of Honor World Champion. Wheeler Yuta, the Ring of Honor Pure Champion. And William Regal. They walk out on stage to pay respect to the tag team champions. Claudio holds up his belt. Wheeler holds up his. We got a little tease for a potential future tag team title match. Not the match that I was expecting. But they planted a seed here at the end of the show for the Blackpool Combat Club to potentially go after those tag team titles. And if Claudio and Wheeler are not successful, maybe if they fail, Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson can pick up the slack, right? Because we all know that when CM Punk comes back, Jon Moxley is no longer going to be the AEW World Champion or the interim champion. Now, FTR doesn't have the AEW tag team titles right now. So I don't know if it would be a case where, they would want to do this match on AEW television. I don't know if maybe Danielson and Moxley would come into Ring of Honor to do a match. I just think that Moxley and Danielson, that's the team I would rather see take on FTR. Not really Wheeler and Claudio. I'd rather see Moxley and Danielson represent the Blackpool Combat Club if they're going to do that match. Now, Bryan Danielson absolutely will be back in Ring of Honor at some point. But, send him and Moxley down there in a few months. And, book a match between them and FTR for the tag team titles. I'd pay to see that match. So that was how they went off the air. And yes, for those who don't know, Bryan Danielson did announce, and they announced it on the pay-per-view as well. But Bryan Danielson dropped the news at the Comic-Con AEW panel earlier this evening that he is going to be in action on Dynamite this Wednesday against Daniel Garcia. So he is back, he is cleared, he is healthy, and that is great news. Here's the Twitter poll, at Solomonster. You guys have given this show so far 85% thumbs up, only 9% thumbs in the middle, and less than 5% thumbs down. I mean, that's even better than these AEW polls. That people usually give them positive ratings, not like this. I mean, shit, this is better than most AEW pay-per-views. So go on Twitter at Solomonster. That is the place where you can register to vote. Darth Panic says FTR went from getting their backs shaved to one of the most decorated tag teams. Well, I'm sure some of you at least have seen pictures in the past of those costumes that Vince McMahon wanted them to wear. They would have looked like a couple of fucking Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I think they dodged a bullet with that one. I think they have gotten the better end of things. I think they're very happy in the position that they're in now. And just all the teams now that they get to work with. You know, if they were still there, we'd be getting FT. If they were even on television, we'd be getting the revival against the Vikings. We'd be getting the revival against the New Day. And then again against the Vikings again, and then against the New Day, and against the Vikings, and against the New Day. Here they get to work with all different teams, right? They get to work with the Bucks. They get to work with the Briscoes. They can work with any number of teams on the AEW roster. They're the AAA Tag Team Champions. They can work with teams down in Mexico. They can work with the Lucha Bros. They can work with Jurassic Express. They can work with House of Black. They can work with any number of teams. FTR is having a career year. The best thing that ever happened to them was walking away. And they walked away from a lot of money. I'm sure more money than they're making now under Tony Khan. They walked away from a great financial situation to take a chance on themselves, and because they love pro wrestling and they just want to be able to go out there and have fun and not be fucking miserable. I think they made the right decision. Take a look at your super chats. If you want to send them on in, I will read your messages. If you have questions, comments about the show tonight, if you just want to show your support for the channel, now is the time to do so. We've got Shin Akuma dropping 5 a couple of hours ago. Thank you, Shin. We've got Doar. Just left the building. I effing love FTR. Yeah, I'd want to hear from more people who were in the building tonight. Again, I heard that the reactions were pretty good and that the crowd was pretty loud, but it just didn't translate that way on TV, except for maybe the main event and a couple of other, at the ends of a couple of other matches. Quintus Brown, $5 super chat. Great show. In the words of Dax, Mother F, I love professional wrestling. Besides the main event, match of the night, Yuta against Garcia. Run both of these matches back. Lil Alien Boy, $4.99. Just got home from the Songus Arena. Energy was nuts. Can't believe I saw the Briscoes and FTR tear the house down live. Winters Paul dropped a pair of super chats. Sorry for the non-ROH question. Did not watch, but do you think people like Tony and Dakota would have still quit had they known Triple H would be back in charge? I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible to know. And Triple H is not yet in a position of creative authority in this company. I think he may end up there, but I don't think it would have changed anything because he's still not necessarily in a position where he would be the one making those decisions. So right now, it is still Bruce. Bruce is still going to be in that chair for a little while longer, at least. And he also says, I miss Bray. Hopefully they bring him back. Yeah. if he comes back, it's going to be to WWE. Bray Wyatt would not be a good fit in AEW. I don't want to see that. If he's going to come back, I'm sure it'll be with WWE. Bender in the chat says that FTR are boring pro wrestlers. I mean, if you're a fan of pro wrestling, like the actual wrestling part of it, I don't understand that comment at all. You're just not a fan. I guess you're just not a fan of actual wrestling, and that's okay. If you're a sports entertainment guy, then that's your thing. But I think that's a very dumb comment. 420 Baked Chicken says match of the year contender Briscoes against FTR. Isaiah, what's going on, Isaiah, with the $5? What an amazing show. The main event was one of the best tag team matches I have ever seen. FTR with another excellent show. Matt Hendricks, $5 super chat. Not often does the same match of the year happen twice in 1 year, but FTR Briscoes were able to do just that. Joshua Bonfield, what is Vince's legacy on wrestling? You will want to tune into the podcast tomorrow, because I'll be talking more about that on episode 766. I don't think that's something that can really be answered in 5 seconds. Actually, if you look right now in the live chat, you'll see there is a blue message that is pinned to the top of the chat. I was on Newsy TV. Had me on. They were doing a story about the Vince McMahon retirement. They had me on to talk about it. Part of what we talked about, actually, is his legacy. So I actually did answer that question. Click that link, and it'll take you to the interview, and you'll get your answer. Matt Hendricks, if Io Shirai wants to stay with WWE, Triple H is the only man who can convince her to stay. Do you agree? Yeah, probably. I would say that's probably right. Justin Jack. Every person sending super chats about the Fed are not invited to my birthday party. Death Before Dishonor was fantastic. True professional wrestling. We've got PJK. Why AEW don't rebrand Rampage as Ring of Honor Rampage? Because that's not what Warner wants. That's not what TNT wants. TNT did not pay for a Ring of Honor show. They paid for an AEW show. That's why. Simple answer. BCom see clearly been very depressed lately. It says, how do you handle a job that you don't like? Well, look, if you're in the middle of a dead-end job that you don't like, or you don't like the people you work with, or whatever it may be, and it's causing you to be depressed every day, then you need to leave that job. So I would start looking. Don't do anything until you got something lined up. I don't know what industry you're in. I don't know what you do for a living, but you can't let it affect your mental health like that. It's not worth it. No job is worth it. So how do you handle a job that you don't like? You remove yourself from that situation and you find one that you do. So, but don't let it affect you in that way. I don't want to hear that you're stuck in a job where you're just miserable every day. I want to hear that you're happy. I want to hear that you're having a good time. I don't like hearing that you're depressed. So definitely get yourself out of that situation. Food Hive with the $9.99. My theory of Daniel Garcia joining the Blackpool Combat Club is coming to fruition, with him about to spill blood with Danielson. With Sammy back with Jericho, Garcia is the odd man out. The seeds will be planted for Wednesday. I think you may be right. The stage could very well be set for Daniel Garcia. Although, here's the problem with that. The Blackpool Combat Club now has Moxley, Danielson, Claudio, and Wheeler. And Regal. Do they really need another member? I don't think they do. So, that's the only part about that theory that I'm not a huge fan of. I don't know that you need to start overloading the group with members. But Garcia does kind of feel like the odd man out. Ed, yes, I am still working with BetterHelp. They're not sponsoring the stream tonight, but a lot of the audio shows they do every other week. You know, next week I believe they'll be sponsoring the show again next Sunday, and I've gotten a lot of emails from people who have taken me up on the 10% off offer for the first month. And they give it a shot and they find it helpful. So there is a link down in the description if you want to check it out for BetterHelp. If you're thinking about it, you can get a little bit of money off. Give it a shot. But you know, I try all of this stuff out before I work with any of these sponsors, which is why you've never seen me advertise with Blue Chip. But I tried BetterHelp out, the service, and I thought it was very seamless. It was very helpful even for me. You know, when I was having some problems falling asleep, my whole sleep pattern was all fucked. But they have, you know, therapists on there that can help with a whole host of problems. So anyway, the link is in the description down below. BCom, see clearly. At least your content is a big help. Thank you. Well, thank you. And again, you can always hang out with us. There's no reason to be depressed when you're on the streams here. This is a depression-free zone. Even though WWE might depress me sometimes, but then I hang out with you guys, and you guys cheer me right up. Danny Blackstock, Willow pissed herself right before she did her finish. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was not paying attention to that. I did not see that. And frankly, I don't really want to know about it. Shaquille Oatmeal just got home from an amazing show. Dax cut a great promo after the show. FTR might be even better as a babyface team. They've really found their groove as babyfaces. It's quite amazing the way that the fans have taken to them. But you know, again, they're in the middle of a career year. You just got to ride that wave. You never know how long it's going to last. We've got Mr. J. Shout out to Mr. J. He's been a Sound Off channel member for 6 months. Now that Vince is gone, I expect some big names to head over to AEW, even if it's just for one night. John Cena, maybe The Rock, or even Brock Lesnar. That is not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Shaquille Oatmeal. Again, thank you for the $4.99. Dom Joseph with the $4.99. Hey, Solomonster, random question. Who takes the L first? Jade Cargill or Hook? Jade. And EJ Slemp. I'm so glad Ring of Honor has love and buzz around it again. Do you think we'll ever see another Ring of Honor show or even an AEW show at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia? Probably. I mean, I know they've renovated the building in recent years, but I think they still run wrestling shows there. I think there's a better chance you'll see one of them at the Hammerstein Ballroom before you see one at the 2300. But I don't see why not at some point. Probably not AEW, but Ring of Honor I could see, but I would say the Manhattan Center would probably get it first. See, so I'm these types of shows. It's like it gives me a sugar high. Gives me a sugar high when I get myself some great wrestling that I could watch. Yeah, again, Jade is on her way to her first loss in the next few months. Hook doesn't have to be beaten for a while. And I really hope that they have enough sense to set things up where, and look, we're going to get Ricky Starks against Danhausen on, not Rampage, on Dynamite this Wednesday. And I'd like to think that, Danhausen obviously is not going to win, but beat the guy down. Here comes Hook. We get that first face-to-face confrontation with Hook and the members of Team Taz. That then leads into Ricky Starks and Hook for the FTW title. Hook wins the championship. It's only appropriate, right? It's the championship that his father created. Hook now has the FTW belt. I mean, when Hook walks to the ring, he has an FTW look on his face. It only makes sense to ultimately get that belt on him. So, to beat Hook anytime in the near future, I think, would be suicide. I think that would be absolutely insane. Marshmallow Coca-Cola. That's not a thing. That's not real. That can't possibly be real. Marshmallow Coca-Cola sounds awful. Yeah, MLW does shows at the 2300 Arena. I knew they did wrestling there. I just wasn't sure which promotions were running that building. So I could see Ring of Honor there before AEW. AEW probably not. So Marshmallow Coca-Cola is a real thing, huh? Well, thankfully, I have no interest in trying it. I'll let you guys be the guinea pigs, and you can try it for me and let me know how it is. You know what I will do, though? I will be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
That I can do. I can be the booker. And tonight, hopefully we'll have a much better night than we did last night. Because last night was a disaster on Be the Booker. So we'll start out with the men. There's our boy, James E. Cornette. Jim Cornette. I think I just picked him a few weeks ago. Shout out to Granny Hell Yeah. Been a channel member for over a year. Says, I saw Ring of Honor at the 2300 in 2016. So we've got Jim Cornette. My God, I mean, there's so many possibilities here. Who could I land on? There's so many possibilities for Jim Cornette. He'll be stepping into the ring to go one-on-one with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Man, there is something to be said. If it was Cornette and Omega, if it was Cornette and Russo, it would be one of those like so bad it's good scenarios. You know what I mean? Cornette and Steamboat. Cornette likes Steamboats. He probably respects Steamboat. I need Cornette in there with somebody that he doesn't respect. That's what makes it entertaining. So, anyway, let's move on here. Try things out with the ladies. Ah, yes. My very first crush. The lovely Elizabeth. The lovely Miss Elizabeth. My first wrestling crush. What a beautiful young woman. Let's see who she's going to be stepping in the ring with. I don't know her to be a great wrestler, though. She actually has to step in the ring and wrestle. Oh, man. All right, I'm done laughing. Miss Elizabeth against Jenna Moraska. What in God's name is she doing in this image? I think some of you are getting a little excited here looking at this photo. Elizabeth should have absolutely nothing to do with any of this. Elizabeth is far too classy to ever be subjected to something like this. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here in this image. I can't stop looking at that image. Anyway. Oh, good Lord. The Miz and Logan Paul. Just because they had a very good match with the Mysterios at WrestleMania this year does not mean that I want to see Logan Paul and The Miz suddenly become a tag team. I'll pick an opponent for them anyway. Miz and Logan Paul against RVD and Sabu. You know what? Sabu's going to take that barbed wire and he's going to wrap it around Logan Paul's neck and drag him around the ring. RVD and Sabu. You know what? RVD and Sabu would actually make that, I think, a very entertaining match. Can you imagine Sabu putting Logan Paul on a table and trying to break the table and the fucking thing doesn't break? And Logan Paul just keeps having this guy crashing down on him and the table's not breaking and Sabu is just bound and determined to break this thing. He'll break that guy in half. I think that would actually be very entertaining. So I'm going to give that the bell. Yes, Sabu would murder Logan Paul. That's actually an interesting match. Miz and Logan Paul against RVD and Sabu in their prime. See, that's why I love Be the Booker. It makes me think sometimes about these match combos that I've never paid any attention to before. How would a match like that look? How would a match like that go down? How would I book a match like that? It's very simple. Like I said, you have Sabu kill Logan Paul. Back to your super chats. We've got Uffman Entertainment, who is doing the Lord's work in the chat every week. Rank your impressions from favorite to most favorite. Johnny Ace, Jimmy Snuka, Willow, and Vince Russo. I don't know that I have favorites necessarily, but I do get a lot of people who always enjoy the Russo one. And actually, I think one of the more underrated ones that people seem to enjoy is the Jimmy Snuka one. Brother, what day of the week, brother? Where are my pills, brother? Brother, I don't even know my own name, brother. We got Chris Manson. $10 super chat. Do you think Ricky Starks will be a huge babyface? He has the potential. Also, Ricky Starks against MJF is giving me some sick thoughts. Could be a money match in the next year or two. Yeah, Ricky Starks has a lot of potential. I mean, people are already cheering for him. People already like him. I think Ricky Starks could end up being a very big babyface. We've got Boots with the $2. Have you played Power Wash Simulator? It is relaxing. What is that? I've never heard of that before. Power Wash Simulator? Is it like going through a car wash? I don't know. I've never heard of it before. Let me know. If it's an app on the phone or something, I'll download it and I'll tell you how it is. GCC 305, Coca-Cola with marshmallows sounds way better than steak with ketchup on it. That must be a New York thing. Love the review. Come on, man. You mean to tell me you don't like that well-done steak with ketchup? That's how a steak should be eaten. Dr. Scorpio. Well, so far it looks like we are going to be well below 500 for Be the Booker in July. January through February, Be the Booker is still the worst. And we've got Mr. Notorious Chico. In your opinion, who is the greatest male and female character that Vince created, and who are the worst? There's no way to pick the worst because there's been so many of them. Obviously, The Undertaker is his greatest creation. So how can you not say The Undertaker? I mean, greatest female character? You know, again, what do you mean by that? Are we talking gimmick? Are we talking just women's wrestler who worked for him? I don't, you gotta kind of break it down by exactly what you mean. Gee, I don't even, on the women's side, I don't even know where to begin on that. I mean, there are some women who I would say are my favorites in terms of women's wrestlers, but you know, greatest creation. I don't know, but on the men's side, I don't see how you can go with anybody but The Undertaker.
With a tear in my eye.
Thank you, Darth. There he is, folks. He's going to be wrestling his last match, for real this time. His last match, next Sunday, the Nature Boy. Hopefully he'll make it out of that ring in one piece. Darth Paddock with the 1992 Royal Rumble Super Chat. If Hulk Hogan never joined the wrestling business and Macho Man was the top guy, would the WWF still have the same success during the 80s? Also, why is Miss Elizabeth not in the Hall of Fame? I don't know why she is not in the Hall of Fame. She absolutely belongs in there. She was a pivotal character on the television show for many years. And frankly, I would have inducted her and Macho Man in the same class. They didn't do that, but that doesn't mean that she shouldn't be inducted one day. I think it's just a matter of she was never... I mean, they have footage of her as a manager. I don't know that her family would attend. I don't know that her family would want it or would care. She's passed away a number of years ago. I don't think they're big on too many posthumous inductions, so it's probably not looking too good. But does she belong in there? Absolutely, of course she does. As far as your other question, obviously it's impossible to say. Hogan had a certain natural charisma about him, and he was just this big jacked up guy. Savage was not physically as big as Hogan, so would that have made a difference? I don't know. I mean, Savage was obviously a pretty charismatic guy himself. He could talk. But would things have gotten as big? I'll say this. When Savage won the title, when Hogan went away in 88, and Savage won the title, business did not go down. Savage on top was able to maintain business while Hogan was away. So my answer to your question would be yes. I think they would have done very well, even with Savage on top instead of Hogan. Because Savage proved that he could be a draw in the absence of Hogan for a good chunk of 1988 when Hogan went away to film No Holds Barred. So, yes, I think that WWF would have still had their big boom period of the 80s, even if it was just the Macho Man and not Hulk Hogan as their number one star. The most important thing was who would they have had to oppose Savage? When Hogan was on top in the WWF the first time, won the title, it was Piper. Hogan and Piper, right? Piper was to Hogan as the Joker was to Batman. Who would that person be for the Macho Man? Would it have been the $1 Million Man? Well, not in 85, it wouldn't have been. So maybe it would have been Savage and Piper. Maybe it would have been somebody else. It's one of those what-if questions that we can never possibly know the answer to. But I think Savage would have done just fine. From a business perspective, I think he would have done just fine. Maybe Katie Vick is Vince's greatest female character. How about Katie Vick? Put Katie Vick in the Hall of Fame. Katie Vick will be in the Hall of Fame before Elizabeth at this point. EJ, what do you think Elizabeth would be doing if she were alive today? Would she have returned to wrestling even for a couple of one-off appearances? Yeah, I think she'd be doing the conventions, and she'd be, doing some maybe podcast interviews. I try to get her on my show. I think she would be doing stuff like that. And WWE might bring her in for the occasional Raw reunion type of thing, but Elizabeth without the Macho Man, though, it just doesn't, I don't know, it wouldn't have felt right, but I think she would have cleaned up nicely on the convention scene. I'm sure Conrad would have found something for her to do. Yes, I saw that. They just created new action figures or dolls, whatever you want to call them. They have new dolls out for Rip and Zeus from No Holds Barred. Hey, TD, $5 super chat. Didn't you predict that Veer would become a comedy character? Yes, I did. How many months has it been? How many months has it been since Veer came? 3 months? Maybe? Maybe not even? Don't ever doubt me. I know what I'm talking about. Chyna is the greatest female character, says Eric Joseph. She might be. She would definitely be up there. Sable. You could say Sable. Sable was a needle mover. Right? Roman Reigns calls himself the needle mover. Sable was a real needle mover. Sable and Stone Cold were two very real needle movers for that company during the Attitude Era. So you could say Sable. You could say Chyna. I think either one of them would be at the top of the list as far as greatest female creations. I think that would be an appropriate answer. Yeah, it won't be long before Veer is dancing like Shanky, and eventually the two of them will probably find each other and they'll become a team. And they'll dance their way to the ring. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Veer has already undergone a character tweaking based on the segment they did with him on TV last Monday, and again, this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about, and we'll wrap this up with this. And I'm going to talk a lot about the Vince McMahon stuff tomorrow, including stuff that I didn't talk about yesterday. When you see stuff like that, when you see someone like Veer, who they built up for months with these vignettes, right? Months and months and months and months and months. And then he debuts, and here we are 3 months later, whatever it's been, and already they're turning him seemingly into a comedy type of character, right? You hear the news about Max Dupree, and how Vince McMahon already gave up on him and didn't think he was a good fit for the Maximum Male models, and so he pulled him from the character. And now Vince is gone, which I think is potentially a very good thing for LA Knight, but we still don't know now what his future holds. So when I get upset and I get animated about stuff, like when they started that stupid fucking gimmick in the first place, and I say, this could be a career killer. Because when this thing fails, or they give up on it, and they will, I don't want him to be collateral damage, and I don't want him to get blamed for why it failed. It failed because it was a stupid fucking idea. But they take people sometimes, like an LA Knight, who I think could be a real player as a single star for them on the roster, and they put them in these ridiculous gimmicks that you know are bound to fail. And you know that the talent knows that they're bound to fail. But that's what Vince McMahon does. One of the positive things now about him being gone is that maybe we'll start to get away from that. Maybe we'll start to get away from some of the more extreme, kind of ridiculous ideas. Maybe some of these careers won't be derailed as quickly or won't be derailed at all. Maybe somebody else steps in there and they see something in Veer and they see something in LA Knight that Vince McMahon didn't. It can never hurt to get a fresh pair of eyes and somebody with a fresh vision for what they're looking for. These are just small examples that I'm giving, but just think about how many careers have been negatively impacted by stuff like this. So I wasn't at all surprised to find out about the LA Knight stuff already going sour. And I can only hope that they'll come up with something else for him to do instead of just giving up on him altogether. Coog says he was a Ryan Shamrock guy. Didn't they want Ken Shamrock to... They were going to do some big reveal where Ken Shamrock was like making out with his... or having sex with his sister. Vince pitched the storyline once, an incest storyline with his daughter, and he was going to be the father of her baby. And then when she rejected the idea, Stephanie herself said that his second idea was, well, then we'll make it Shane. Shane will be the father of your baby. This is the kind of sick, fucking demented mind that this guy has. This is the kind of shit that he finds funny. You're going to tell me I can't celebrate the fact that this guy is gone from the company? Fuck him, and fuck you too. All right, tomorrow, episode 766. A very busy episode of the podcast. There was some stuff I was going to cover on there in terms of some of the TV specials that have aired over the past week, but that went out the window as soon as the Vince McMahon news broke. So we'll cover a bunch of different things, and maybe we'll save some of the other stuff as YouTube exclusive for this week. But don't miss episode 766 tomorrow, and then we have a very busy week coming up. As if it couldn't get any busier. We're going to be live here for Dynamite on Wednesday when the show is over. We might do SummerSlam predictions, maybe Thursday night. We'll see. Friday night I'll be live. Saturday is SummerSlam. Sunday is Ric Flair's potentially, possibly, maybe final match. And I'll be here covering it all. And all I ask is that you come on back and you join me and keep me company. And I will have you covered for it all. Cassidy Grooms, thank you for the $1.99. He says, you are the best, and so are you, my friend. Thank you for the support. And that's all I got. So have a good night, and I will see you for 766 tomorrow. Take care, guys.